Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between rolling hills, lived a kind old starcatcher. He was known throughout the village for his gentle nature and his incredible stories about the stars. He had twinkling blue eyes and a smile that could light up the night sky. His presence brought warmth and comfort to everyone around him. The starcatcher had a magical net, a gift from his grandfather, who was once a starcatcher too. This net was no ordinary net. It had the power to catch the light of the stars. The net was woven from moonlight and dreams, shimmering like a cobweb spun from silver. It was a beautiful and delicate creation, yet incredibly strong. The starcatcher's grandfather had been his best friend. They shared a bond that was unbreakable, filled with love and mutual respect. They spent their days gazing at the stars, sharing stories, and dreaming under the vast, endless sky. The nights were filled with wonder and the magic of the universe. His grandfather taught him about constellations and the secrets whispered on the wind. He learned to listen to the stars and understand their stories. Most importantly, he taught him about kindness and helping those in need. The starcatcher learned that true magic lies in the goodness of one's heart. When his grandfather was old and frail, close to becoming one with the stars himself, he knew it was time to pass on the legacy. He gave the magical net to his grandson. It was a moment filled with emotion and the weight of generations. Holding his hands, he whispered, "This net holds the power of wishes. Use it wisely, my boy. Use it to help others." His words were a guiding light for the starcatcher. The starcatcher promised he would. He felt the weight of his grandfather's legacy and the responsibility it carried. He loved his grandfather dearly and vowed to keep his promise always. The stars above would forever remind him of the love and wisdom passed down to him. The starcatcher cherished the magical net. He kept it carefully folded, tucked away in a cedar chest, its faint glow a reminder of his grandfather and his promise. The starcatcher wasn't sure how it worked, but he knew his grandfather was right. The net pulsed with a gentle energy, a silent hum of magic that felt warm and comforting. He waited for the right moment, a sign, a whisper on the wind that would tell him when to use the net for the first time. He thought about his grandfather's words, "Use it to help others." He realized that helping others wasn't about grand gestures. It was about small acts of kindness, a helping hand, a listening ear. The starcatcher began helping people in his village. He chopped firewood for the baker with a bad back, carried water for the elderly widow, and helped the miller mend his leaky roof. One day, the starcatcher heard the sound of children crying. He followed the sound to the village square and found a group of children huddled together, their faces streaked with tears. "What's wrong?" he asked gently, his heart aching at their sadness. "Our kite flew too high and the wind snatched it away," cried one little boy, pointing a finger to the sky where a speck of color danced in the distance. The other children nodded sadly. The starcatcher knew what he had to do. He retrieved the magical net from his cedar chest. Holding it gently, he closed his eyes and wished with all his heart for the wind to return the children's kite. He felt a warmth spread through him, a tingling energy that flowed from his hands into the net. As he opened his eyes, he saw the wind shift. It swooped down like a playful bird, gently guiding the kite back into the waiting arms of the children. Another day, while walking through the village, the starcatcher heard a mournful whimpering coming from the edge of the forest. He followed the sound and found a small puppy, lost and alone, its tail tucked between its legs. The puppy was shivering, its brown eyes wide with fear. The starcatcher sat down beside it and gently stroked its soft fur. He knew he couldn't leave it there, lost and scared. He thought about using the net, but what if someone was looking for this little puppy? He decided to ask around the village if anyone had lost their furry friend. He went door to door, describing the puppy and asking if anyone had seen it. Finally, at the bakery, Mrs. Dumpling, the baker's wife, exclaimed, "That's Buttercup! She's been missing all morning!" The starcatcher, with Buttercup nestled happily in his arms, followed Mrs. Dumpling back to her cottage. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the landscape, and the air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers. There, in the garden, he saw a sight that made his heart sink. The once lush greenery was now a shadow of its former self. Mrs. Dumpling's once vibrant garden, bursting with colorful flowers and plump vegetables, was wilted and dry. The drought had turned the soil to dust. The flowers drooped, their petals brittle and brown. It was a heartbreaking sight for anyone who had seen the garden in its prime. The leaves on the vegetable plants were shriveled and dry. They crumbled at the slightest touch, a testament to the harsh conditions. "Oh dear," Mrs. Dumpling sighed, her face etched with worry. She had tended to this garden for years, and seeing it in such a state was almost too much to bear. The drought has taken its toll. The earth was cracked and parched, crying out for relief. "Without rain, my garden will die." Her voice trembled with the weight of her words. The Starcatcher knew he had to help. He couldn't stand by and watch the garden wither away. He couldn't bear to see Mrs. Dumpling's beautiful garden wither away. It was a place of joy and life, now reduced to a desolate patch. He excused himself and hurried back to his cottage. There, he knew he had something that could help. He retrieved the magical net and held it gently. This net had the power to catch the essence of rain. Closing his eyes, he wished for a gentle rain to nourish the thirsty garden. He could feel the magic working through him. He felt the familiar warmth spread through him, and when he returned to Mrs. Dumpling's cottage, he could smell the sweet, earthy scent of rain. It was a sign that his wish had been granted. Fat raindrops were falling softly, soaking the parched earth, and the garden was already beginning to revive. The plants seemed to lift their heads in gratitude. Mrs. Dumpling was crying tears of joy, and the Starcatcher felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The garden would live to see another day thanks to his efforts. One particularly clear night, the Starcatcher was gazing at the stars, their twinkling light a familiar comfort. As he looked up at the vast expanse above, he noticed something unusual. A small star, much closer than the others, seemed to be falling, leaving a trail of shimmering dust behind it. He watched in amazement as the star slowly descended, landing softly in the forest beyond his cottage. Curious, the Starcatcher grabbed his lantern and hurried into the darkness, his heart pounding with anticipation. He had never seen a star fall from the sky before. As he approached the clearing where he had seen the starland, he noticed a soft, ethereal glow emanating from behind a cluster of trees. He pushed aside the branches and gasped. There, nestled amongst the roots of an ancient oak tree, lay the fallen star. But this was no ordinary star. This star was small and dim, its light flickering weakly. It seemed to be hurt, its once brilliant light fading fast. The Starcatcher knelt beside it, his heart filled with concern. "What's wrong, little star?" he asked softly. "How can I help you?" The star flickered faintly, and a voice, as soft as the whisper of the wind, reached the Starcatcher's ears. "I've lost my way," the star whispered. "My light is fading. I need to return to the sky, but I'm not strong enough." The Starcatcher knew he had to help the little star. He couldn't let it fade away. He thought of his grandfather and the magical net, a gift meant for helping others. But could it help a star? The Starcatcher carefully lifted the star and cradled it gently in his hands. It was a delicate task, one that required both precision and tenderness. He could feel a faint warmth emanating from it, a glimmer of hope that its light could be rekindled. The warmth was subtle, yet it carried a promise of something greater. He hurried back to his cottage, the star's faint glow guiding his way. The path was familiar, yet tonight it felt different, almost magical. He carefully laid the star in his favorite armchair, the one his grandfather used to sit in. Memories of his grandfather flooded back, filling him with a sense of purpose. He retrieved the magical net and held it above the star. This net, passed down through generations, was said to have the power to restore the star's light. Closing his eyes, he wished with all his might for the star's light to be restored, for it to find its way back to the sky where it belonged. His heart raced with anticipation. He felt a surge of energy flow through him, and the room was bathed in a brilliant white light. It was as if the very essence of the star was merging with his own spirit. When the light subsided, the star was gone. The Starcatcher rushed outside, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. High above, in the night sky, he saw a star shining brighter than all the others. It was a sight that filled him with immense joy and relief. It twinkled brightly, as if in gratitude, and the Starcatcher smiled. He felt a deep connection with the star, as if it was thanking him for his efforts. He knew that somewhere, his grandfather was smiling too. The bond they shared was unbroken, transcending time and space. He had kept his promise. The night was peaceful, and the Starcatcher felt a profound sense of fulfillment.